Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector.
And energy security worry is driving a lot of the thoughts now about, oh, we need more drilling of gas, we need more drilling of this.
With trillions at its disposal.
No, we don't. We absolutely don't.
Far beyond global GDP.
And we have to prevent a false narrative from entering into this.
And with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders.
How dare you!
It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Or, again, pun intended, we are close.
Since I took office, families are carrying less debt. Their average savings are up.
But if you were in Brazil, you'd be paying the same amount for gas at the pump, over $5.
But I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate.
How dare you!
We're going to end fossil fuel. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve found that more Americans feel financially comfortable than any time since the survey began in 2013.
In West Hollywood, it will cost you $7.35 there for a gallon of regular unleaded.
If Biden got in, you'd be paying $7, $8, $9. Didn't they say, get rid of your car?
After waiting for a long time to have enough chips in this country to finally get my electric vehicle, I got it and drove it from Michigan to here this last weekend and went by every single gas station, and didn't matter how high it was.
And I am not going to cooperate. I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to cooperate.
How dare you!
If Biden got in, you'd be paying $7, $8, $9. Didn't they say, get rid of your car?
Hey everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. I'm here at the Kroger store in Mason, Ohio. This is where we always shop, and I want to show you gas prices. Now, hopefully I won't make you seasick as I zoom in. Okay, so gas is actually down. It's down 10 cents from a couple of days ago to $4.99. It was $5.09, but diesel is up 20 cents to $6.19. Now, why am I doing this? Okay, so you don't need me to point out that gas prices are high, historically high. They've never been this high in my lifetime. So what is the point? Well, the point here is to illustrate that as long as Illy Joe remains the sock puppet in chief, these prices are not only here to stay, they're going to continue to climb, and that is by design. So in this episode, we're going to show you that it's not just gross incompetence. Oh yes, there's plenty of that, but unfortunately, it's a lot worse than that, and there are forces much greater than Illy Joe the sock puppet at work. And so we're going to pull back the covers and give you at least a good glimpse into who the sock puppet masters are. And we got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be long.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us just how devastating a global cross-border threat can be.
That was Charles Philip Arthur George. He likes to call himself Prince Charles. Now, I got to get this out of the way. The concept of the monarchy, to me, is every bit as repugnant as apartheid. So, henceforth, I'm going to refer to him as CPAG. But CPAG was speaking in Glasgow, Scotland in November 2021. Should have paid more attention to CPAG. I'm not in the habit of taking him seriously. I did notice the word his, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But right now, I want to play the seminal clip from this CP26, which was a United Nations climate change event convention. Biden was there, Kerry was there, and CPAG was there. We're going to hear from him now.
Climate change and biodiversity loss are no different. In fact, they pose an even greater existential threat, to the extent that we have to put ourselves on what might be called a warlike footing.
So that is the premise that CPAG and the rest of the global cabalists are desperate to sell to folks like you and I. We must understand that we're in a moment of crisis, and we must be on a warlike footing.
Having myself had the opportunity of consulting many of you over these past 18 months, I know you all carry a heavy burden on your shoulders.
All right, you get it. So it's a moment of crisis and we're facing an existential threat. Okay, we get that. Now let's get to the seminal clip.
And you do not need me to tell you that the eyes and hopes of the world are upon you.
Okay, if you have wondered if you would ever witness a sincere moment with the sock puppet in chief, you just saw a sincere moment with the sock puppet in chief. He takes this very seriously for a variety of reasons. Yes, indeed, he is feeling the weight of this immense burden on his shoulders.
Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at his disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Understanding what CPAG just said in those last 30 seconds is crucial to getting a grip and an understanding of what's going on in the U.S. today and around the world. So let's break it down. First of all, he said, here we need a vast military-style campaign. Think about that, military-style campaign. So in a military campaign, to be successful, one side has to believe that they are superior, they have superior ideas, and they must vanquish, they must obliterate and overcome their opposition. And who is this army in this militaristic style campaign? Well, they're marshaling the strength of the global private sector. Now, spoiler alert, you're not part of that private sector. This is the big corporations. These are these 300 CEOs plus that he has talked to that are part of this military style campaign that's going to overcome opposition. He goes on to say with trillions at his disposal. Who's his? Now, I'll play that for you just that second because sometimes I hear it and it sounds like he says its disposal. Sometimes it sounds like he says his disposal. Either way, it infers the same thing, a giant global cabal with trillions at his or its disposal. But I'll play that again and you can decide. But if it is his disposal, I think that makes it even creepier.
With trillions at his disposal, with trillions at his disposal, with trillions at his disposal.
Boy, I decided to slow it down just at the last moment. And when you hear it slow like that, I'm hearing his disposal. That's creepy. Who is his? But even if it was its, he's describing this global cabal that has trillions at its or his disposal. And with respect, this amount of financial power is far beyond global GDP. So he is interacting with a person or a group that is represented by a person that has trillions, that has more than the collective governments of the world, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. So he's talking about, once again, this global cabal, this consortium of corporations that have more power and influence than any single country's government or the collective governments of the world. And he goes on to say, it offers the only real prospect of economic transition. So it's all about a military-style campaign that forces ordinary citizens to submit to the transition from the petrodollar in the economy as we know it now to a green economy. The problem is that green economy does not exist. However, The sock puppet in chief is completely sold on that notion and completely devoted to that notion and is in lockstep with CPAG.
I met with Prince Charles, who's put together a very significant operation over the last 6-7 years of trying to bring in the private sector to work on a number of these issues.
So Fojo, the sock puppet in chief, may be dumber than a dementia-fied box of rocks, but he's on board with CPAG. Now, let's look at a few other things that he had to say at this same conference.
Glasgow must be the start, as you're tired of hearing me say it, but a decisive decade of action so we can keep the limit of 1.5 degrees within the reach of us and the rest of the world.
Now, Fojo the sock puppet is the king of all gaffes, but this is one time I think we need to take him seriously, because when he talks about a decade of action moving towards all this green business, he's taking it seriously, but far more importantly, the global cabal behind him is very serious. You could almost say deadly serious. And those that are part of the sock puppet regime, they're serious. And in just a moment, you're going to hear him refer to by 2030. And then when we couple that with Agenda 2030, folks, this is the barrel of the gun that we are staring down now.
We have to keep accelerating our progress. Today's agreement by more than 100 countries, representing 85% of the world's forest, to halt and reverse deforestation by 2030.
There. He said it, 2030. But lest you think that's a one-off, he's going to say it again. And when you hear him say it again, ask yourself, how far away is 2030? I would submit to you it's coming up awfully quick. But here it is again.
For our part, the United States is going to keep raising the ambition and delivering the goal that we are reducing U.S. emissions by 50 to 52%. As Secretary Kerry's talked about, from the 2005 levels by 2030.
Faux Biden, the sock puppet, may be a fool, but the cabal behind him is not fooling around. And the evil regime that serves him or directs him or does whatever they do with the sock puppet in their midst, they're not fooling around either. And they're taking this 2030 deadline to transition the economy. In other words, destroy your lifestyle and mine. They are taking it very seriously. Note the strength of tone that John Kerry uses when presented with the question or the idea of whether we need to do more drilling. Listen for the strength of tone.
And energy security worry is driving a lot of the thoughts now about, oh, we need more drilling of gas. We need more drilling of this. We need to go back to coal. No, we don't. We absolutely don't.
John Kerry may have legs that look like he rented them from Mick Jagger. But when he says, no, we don't, about drilling for oil or acquiring more natural gas or utilizing our natural resources as far as coal is concerned, he means it. And unfortunately, at the moment, as part of the administration of the sock puppet in chief, he presently has the ability to influence in that arena and to do something about it.
And we have to prevent a false narrative from entering into this, or again, pun intended, we are cooked.
You thought censorship was bad about COVID, about vaccines, about the 3rd of November? Well, don't go saying anything to disparage gas prices, and certainly don't say anything to disparage anything having to do with green, because the new climate change censors are on the move. Wall Street Journal opinion section, June 13th, 2022. Climate Change Censorship Phase 2. We'll look at 2 paragraphs. Progressives first demanded that social media platforms silence critics of climate alarmism. Now White House National Climate Advisor GINA McCarthy wants them to censor content on the costs of a force-fed green energy transition. Comparing fossil fuel companies to big tobacco, she complained that, quote, dark money, unquote, is being used to, quote, fool, unquote, the public about the, quote, benefits of clean energy, unquote. Quote, we need the tech companies to really jump in, she said, because highlighting the cost of green energy is equally dangerous to denial because we have to move fast.
We have to get tighter. We have to get better at communicating. And frankly, the tech companies have to stop allowing specific individuals over and over again to spread disinformation.
So Gina, darling, doesn't like misinformation. Let me play you something that she actually says. You're not going to believe it.
Fossil fuels have actually created significant health challenges in our country. Not just climate change, but we're talking about pollution that's impacting people's lives. We're talking about billions of human beings every year across the world dying because it's related to climate or fossil fuels.
I didn't finish college, so I may need some help from my intellectual betters, so please help me out. But if I understand the English language properly, she said billions die every year. So when you say billions, plural, that's at least 2 billion. And when you say every year, that's talking about at least more than 1 year, and if it's every year, it's got to be consecutive. So have 4 billion people actually died in the last 2 years? Man, how have they kept that a secret? And you say, oh, she just misspoke. She never corrected herself. She never corrected herself. And she works for the sock puppet who on the campaign trail said he will end fossil fuel. Take a look.
But kiddo, I want you to just take a look, okay? You don't have to agree. But I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate. Okay?
In fossil fuel. He said it on the campaign trail. Not going to cooperate with the fossil fuel industry. He said it on the campaign trail. It's one of the many reasons that the sock puppet was installed, so that the puppet masters could control the sock puppet based on that agenda. And that is why you see cabinet members and you see people that hold certain titles say the most ridiculous, asinine things, because they're not trying to do the job that they presently occupy. They're not trying to solve a problem. They're trying to fool the public as this agenda goes forward. Here's a really good example of a total moron making a totally moronic comment.
But if you were in Brazil, you'd be paying the same amount for gas at the pump, over $5. If you were in Canada, you'd be paying over $6. If you were in Germany, you'd be paying
Secretary.
over $8. So
we're talking about the United States,
around
though.
The world.
We're talking about the United States right now, what the president can do.
Sweet cheeks, this ain't Brazil and this ain't Canada. And you're supposed to be the energy secretary for United States. But folks, she's not trying to get anything done. She's not trying to get anything accomplished. She is there to be a figurehead while this militaristic style campaign rages forward and the United States government does nothing but implement it. I want to show you one more moronic comment by this same moron that heads up the position of Energy Secretary. Take a look.
Secretary Granholm, today in the state of Missouri, the average price of gasoline today, as of this morning, is $4.10. Average price of diesel is $5.18. And I'm sure you've seen the reporting this morning that now AAA is projecting that gas prices will hit a national average of $6 a gallon by the month of August. Is this acceptable to you?
No, it is not. And you can
thank the activity of Vladimir Putin for invading Ukraine and pulling essentially those barrels.
With all due respect, Madam Secretary, that's utter nonsense.
I actually wasn't going to show that part of the clip, but I pulled it up, and that was only a month ago. And Senator Hawley is talking about gas being $4.10. If gas became $4.10 again, I might even be Stockholm Syndrome because I'd think I was getting a good deal. But her answer is just as stupid. Putin doesn't have anything to do with the price of gasoline. But let me show you the real clip I was going to show you, because as stupid as her answer was then, you're going to hear something even stupider.
In January of 2021, the average gas price in my state was $2.07. 8 months later, long before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, that price was up over 30%, and it has been going up consistently since. What are you doing to reverse this administration's policies that are drawing down our own supply of energy in this country, that are throttling oil and gas production in the United States of America? What are you doing about it?
With respect, sir, it is not administration policies that have affected supply and demand.
How can you say that when the price of gas was up over 30% from...
The point of this video is not to just drill down on Jennifer Granholm. Her answers are complete propaganda, and I hope that you can tie that into the larger agenda. But there's still one more clip that we're going to show you just to illustrate that these people aren't attempting to do their job. They're not trying to solve any problems. They are once again figureheads as the economy transitions toward complete and total disaster, which is by design. Here's another piece of propaganda.
And here's what your president did when he first came to office. He immediately re-entered the Paris Climate Accord. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He halted leasing programs in Anwar. He issued a 60-day halt on all new oil and gas leases and drilling permits on federal lands and waters. That's nationwide. That accounts, by the way, for 25% of U.S. oil production. He directed federal agencies to eliminate all supports for fossil fuels. He imposed new regulations on oil and gas and methane emissions. Those were all just in the first few days. Are you telling me that's had no effect on our energy supply?
94% of the oil and gas executives that were surveyed by the Dallas Fed said that administration policies had nothing to do with the increase in the price of oil.
I'm not interested in opinions of those people.
Okay, so her answer is completely stupid, completely moronic, completely imbecilic. But the problem is she knows that it's completely stupid, moronic, and imbecilic and everything else. Folks, she thinks she can get away with it. That is the role that she is playing. She's playing the role of Baghdad Bob. She's playing the role of the Wizard of Oz, who kept on talking even when you pulled the curtain back. But she's not the only one that does that. Listen to what the sock puppet in chief has to say about our economy as you are trying to figure out how to make ends meet when you're paying $5 per gallon for gas and $6 for diesel. Listen to the sock puppet in chief.
Since I took office, families are carrying less debt. Their average savings are up. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve found that more Americans feel financially comfortable than any time since the survey began in 2013.
Now, of course, that's the biggest load of crap you ever heard, the biggest hogwash that you've ever encountered. All right, but it's the role that the sock puppet is playing. It's the role that these figureheads are playing. Here's another figurehead. She's a senator from Michigan, but listen to the way that she Marie Antoinette's her way out of what everybody else in America is facing, because she has got enough chips in that she was able to buy an electric car.
I do have to say, just on the issue of gas prices, after waiting for a long time to have enough chips in this country to finally get my electric vehicle, I got it and drove it from Michigan to here this last weekend and went by every single gas station, and didn't matter how high it was.
Boy, the things you can do these days with some really good embalming fluid and a rehab James Brown wig. I tell you, it's just amazing. Okay, Senatorette, not everybody can buy an electric car. And what about the guys that I know, the guys that drive the Ram 2500s and the Ford 2500s, the people that actually work, the roofers, the contractors, the landscapers? Hey, Senator, they ain't making no electric vehicles that work for those guys, but you don't care that they're now paying $6 a gallon for diesel.
Investing to make it more convenient and quicker and easier to get around by transit pays dividends. It pays off for people who don't own a car or don't want to have to deal with parking and with filling up. Having access to transit means you have better ways to get to jobs and opportunities while saving money.
Mass transit is just like a giant Uber service. I mean, it'll take you anywhere you want to go, whenever you want to go there. So schedule job interviews all over town. Mass transit will get you there, take you to any kind of job you want to work. Mass transit. That's just the stupidest, most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. But once again, Pete Buttigieg is not trying to be a real transportation secretary. He's playing a role as they advance this agenda. Now, we've got to shift gears so we can bring this to a landing, because I got to get back to CPAG and we got to talk about this global cabal. But what we've just done is spent some time giving just a few examples of the propaganda and all the garbage they use to try to sell this agenda. CNN article dated Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Biden urges oil companies to boost supply, slams high profit margins is not acceptable. Biden is calling on major oil refinery companies to take immediate actions to ramp up supply, telling them in a new letter historical high profit margins are not acceptable at a time when Americans continue to see soaring prices at the pump. And he says that my administration is prepared to use all reasonable and appropriate federal government tools and emergency authorities to increase refinery capacity. Blame it on the refineries. It's a complete misdirection, but it's what they're trying to do. You heard just a few moments ago all the things that Senator Josh Hawley went through that outlined what the sock puppet regime has done to completely inflate the price of gas. But this misdirection is something they're sticking with. Here's one more example.
There are other industries that you think need to step up in a patriotic fashion to try to help reduce inflation or costs for Americans?
So there's not a list that I have right now for you. Right now we want to focus on the oil refinery, which is why we put out the letter today or yesterday. I'm losing my track of time. And so we see that as an important first step in making sure that the oil refineries are doing their part. Again, patriotic duty.
Okay, so the refining industry rebuts that claim of the Biden administration. I'm going to quickly take you into an article by the Washington Examiner. Washington Examiner from June 16th, 2022, headline: Oil trade groups rebut Biden refinery claims and note world-leading capacity. Executives from the two U.S. oil industry trade groups on Wednesday rebutted Joe Biden's accusations that refiners were reaping undue profits, denying his claims that the sector is not doing its part to ramp up production and lower energy costs, and instead placing blame on his policy agenda. The executives also noted that investing in additional capacity is a long-term decision and is discouraged by Biden's efforts to move the economy away from fossil fuels, citing his campaign comment that he meant to end fossil fuel. And one other thing, roughly 1/3 of recent refining capacity loss is due to conversions to renewable fuel production. Now, folks, bear with me. We still have some very important ground to cover, but that article basically makes 3 points that I want to emphasize. Number one, in the response from the oil refinery people to the sock puppet, number one, they're saying, it's your policy's fault, pal. It's your fault. Number two, they're saying, sock puppet, you make the future uncertain to invest in. When you are committed to destroying fossil fuel, then you want to turn around and yell at us because of the way we invest in, drumroll please, fossil fuel. And number three, and this we're going to unpack a little bit, Renewables, all this talk about renewable energy, guess what? It lowers refining capacity, and that's not all that renewables do to the energy situation. I'm going to show you.
Well, I want you to explain that line of causation. Why do the subsidies for wind and solar power and other renewables lead to the shutdown of coal and nuclear plants?
Well, the thing about the subsidies is that they allow the solar and wind producers to even make money when prices go negative. So they can actually make money when they pay the grid to take their power. But the problem is that the nuclear and coal plants need to be running all the time to actually make money. And so when solar and wind come onto the grid, and which displaces some coal and nuclear, they can't make money. So this is driving the coal and nuclear plants across the U.S., especially in the Midwest, which is where you're seeing a big problem this summer, to close down. I think one operator called the market irreparably dysfunctional.
Look, I know we're primarily talking about gas prices, but it's the same principle. Accommodating all of this unreliable, renewable crap, pardon my language, it lowers refining capacity and it lowers the effectiveness of the power grid. And I don't have time to go into the details if you're not from this area, but Columbus, Ohio, Central Ohio, middle of this past week had rolling India-style, Pakistan-style blackouts where one part of the city is turned on for a while, then shut off so the other part could come on. Folks, it's all part of the same 2030 agenda. I'm going to read just a few lines from this interesting PDF from BlackRock. Consistent with these shareholder rights, we believe BlackRock has a responsibility, yada, yada. BlackRock Investment Stewardship does this through engagement with the management team or board members on material business issues, including but not limited to environmental, social, and governance, ESG matters. And for those clients who have given us authority through voting proxies in their best long-term economic interest, we also participate in the public dialogue to help shape global norms and industry standards with the goal of supporting a policy framework consistent with our clients' interests as long-term shareholders. They help shape public dialogue to shape global norms and industry standards. Now, in case you're saying, Everett, seems like you pulled that last clip just out of nowhere. No, I'm not. That PDF from BlackRock just explained. They make it sound really good, really happy, really benign. But through ESG, environmental, social, and governance, they just explained that BlackRock, which is a $10 trillion company, they tell companies what to do. You know, in the early days when you were setting up, what you wanted to invest in for your 401k, you used a financial advisor to help you find good companies to put money into. But BlackRock, no. They're way beyond that. They take their clients' money. They take the state pension funds. They take your 401ks, etc. And they use your money. They use our money to tell companies what to do, to tell industries what to do, to tell the world what to do. Let's go back and reread what CPAG said. We need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, even beyond the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of economic transition. So, ladies and gentlemen, the problem is you have, and it's not just BlackRock, but it's the BlackRocks of the world. The problem is that they are trying to shape the direction we're going in, and with no regard to what you're paying for gas at the gas pump. And to add to the confusion, or the frustration rather, they're hypocrites. And this clip, and we're going to bring this to a close very closely, but this clip should illustrate what we're talking about. Article from fintel.io dated 2/1/22 reads, BlackRock Inc. has filed an SC 13GA form with the Securities and Exchange Commission disclosing ownership of 89,983,773 shares of Nike. This represents 7% ownership of the company. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, dude, this is supposed to be about gas, price of gas, and now we're on who's black and who's rock, and what does Nike have to do with anything? No. I'll make this real simple for you. The reason I show you that about BlackRock and Nike is that you saw from their own PDF that they use ESG to tell companies, to tell industries, to tell countries, and eventually to tell you and to tell me how we have to live, how we have to act, and that includes New Green Deal and all of that garbage. But I played that last part so that you can realize that BlackRock, being a 7% owner of Nike, there's all the proof you need of their hypocrisy. Why? Because Nike, just ask Jason Whitlock, uses slave labor. And so why is that important to the discussion? It's because if you are expecting things to make sense, they're not. Anything that you hear from the sock puppet regime about trying to bring prices down, it is a lie. Anything you hear about refineries, anything you hear about energy, period, from the sock puppet regime is going to be a lie, because they are allied with CPAG and company, and they are still faithful to the stated goal of destroying the fossil fuel industry. And ladies and gentlemen, the sooner we realize this, the sooner we realize this is not a temporary inconvenience. This is a full on, all hands on deck, full frontal assault, whatever you want. This is war. Gonna drill down a little bit more to drive the point home, because some people understand what the cabal is up to, but they are fighting back, as evidenced by this article from Fox Business dated January 17, 2022. Headline, West Virginia dumps BlackRock fund over anti-energy stance. State Treasurer Riley Moore says BlackRock's push for climate-focused investments threatens West Virginia's economy. I'm going to read a quote from the treasurer. As the state's chief financial officer and chairman of the board of Treasury Investments, I have a duty to ensure that taxpayer dollars are managed in a responsible, financially sound fashion which reflects the best interest of our state and country. And I believe doing business with BlackRock runs contrary to that duty. What a concept. The treasurer of West Virginia is actually saying, no, BlackRock, you can't take our state pension funds, you can't take our retirement investment monies and use them to wage economic war against our state. The article also does a very good job of exposing the cozy relationship that BlackRock has with China. And finally, check out this picture. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, speaking at, drumroll please, wait for it, World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Tuesday, January 21 of 2020. So, Larry Fink, BlackRock, World Economic Forum, CPAG, the sock puppet, all part of the same cabal. This is war. I'm going to play a clip by our great President 45, and then we're going to sign off for real.
We have more oil than anybody, okay? And it's an incredible thing that it's happened over the last few years, a lot of great things, and you're paying, what, $2 a gallon for your gasoline? That's okay. You know what that's like? That's like a tax cut. That's bigger than a tax cut. If Biden got in, you'd be paying $7, $8, $9. Didn't they say, get rid of your car?
Like a lot of my videos, this came out a little bit longer than what I intended, and there's still a lot more to say, but hopefully we got you thinking. And a production note, yes, some audio issues on some of the inside shots, so my face is way up in the camera. Sorry for the distraction. Sorry to scare you. So don't email me. President Trump is an amazing speaker, and he makes it look really, really easy. I mean, he barely looks at a teleprompter, and so it looks like he's just always talking off the top of his head. However, he is a very effective messenger. He is very effective with his messaging, and he knows what he's saying. So how did he know that gas would go to $7 a gallon, $8 a gallon, probably $9 a gallon in California before this is all said and done? Well, maybe it's because he understands the global cabal. He's going head-to-head, toe-to-toe with them, and that's why we need him back. That's why the episode is called Gas High Until 45. And what do we do in the meantime? Well, CPAG isn't the only player in the game, but he has alerted us to how this game is playing out. You've got Larry Fink and the BlackRocks of the world that together control more money than all the GDPs of all the countries of the world combined, and they use that economic power to force a green agenda on the whole rest of the planet. And if you do anything or say anything to criticize, Gina McCarthy is going to have you censored. And they're even using the Securities and Exchange Commission, the commission that regulates all publicly traded companies, the ones that make up the portfolio in your 401k or other retirement plans. They use the SEC as another enforcement mechanism for this woke agenda. And so where does that leave, the casualties of war, the families that have to choose between gas to go to work and food on the table, the contractors that can't afford the fuel to get to the job site, the truckers that can't afford the fuel to bring goods and services to market? Well, they all just need to shut up, suck it up, and go get one of those really high-paying green union jobs that are on every corner. Except, well, they're not. But don't get bogged down in the details, because people are dying. They're dying $2 billion a year, and I did the math. That's 5 million a day. That's over 231,000 people in an hour. That's 3,800 people a minute that are dying. So in the course of this approximately 40-minute video, we're going to kill 200,000 people. And if you mow your grass or you drive your car or heat your house with natural gas, it's all your fault. And John Kerry rode in on his private jet to tell you so. So what do we do about it? Well, speaking of John Kerry, I think he let the cat out of the bag as far as the real Achilles heel to all that, when he said, we can't let a false narrative get out there that we need to drill for oil, drill for gas, we need to mine more coal. Well, actually, the truth always wins. And actually, what he's calling a false narrative is exactly what needs to get out. We need to speak the truth. We're in an information warfare. The first battle is easy to win. Don't believe them and speak opposite of them. And why not have a little bit of fun with this along the way? Why not enjoy some of the humor that's in the hypocrisy? How about this? BlackRock wants to shove $6 a gallon gas down our throats here in the Midwest, probably higher, but they're also in bed and do business in China. And China doesn't give a rip about any of this, and they certainly don't adhere to these guidelines, so they're happy to watch the West totally self-destruct because it makes them stronger, it makes them more wealthy, and BlackRock makes money on both sides of the equation. Remember, the fight promoter gets paid regardless of who wins the fight. Check into your portfolio. Get out of BlackRock. Get out of anything like that. Vote with your money. But folks, we got to fight back. And finally, I just want to say, we've got to put our faith in the Lord. The times, they might be getting even tougher before they get better. don't slack up on faith. Don't slack up on prayer. Don't slack up on giving. We got to trust God to get through this, and we are going to get through this, and we're going to win. So until next time, God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the state of Ohio, and God bless the United States of America. We're going to close with some beautiful, God-given blue sky.